Hello, Brianna. How are you?
I am amazing. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, guys, I am really excited. I'm probably going to butcher her name saying this, but Brianna Hosack. Is that how I say it right?
Hozak.
Hosack. Hosack. Oh my God.
That's okay.
Is an alignment and impact creativity coach. And I'm super excited because we've just been chatting, getting all warmed up for this interview and finding out how aligned we are on, creating a big impact in the world and helping moms and to take action now instead of putting things off in the future. So I'm really excited to hear all the things that Brianna has to share with us. And just to start, like I do with everyone, I'm going to ask you, like, hey, Brianna, take us back in the day and tell us a little bit about who you were then and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So I started out, first of all, I grew up, I had a stay-at-home mom. And so I always imagined that I would be home with my kids. And so when I had my daughter, I was home for maternity leave, but then I went to work and I hated it. I hated it so much. I hated being away from her. I was really lucky I was able to take her to my sister to watch her, but I was still like, it's not me. And it's not the same. And so I actually originally opened a day home so that I was running that out of my house. I had like six other people's kids on top of my own. And I was actually struggling with postpartum depression still at the same time. And so I was really, really overwhelmed. I also have ADHD, and a lot of the time, ADHD and depression kind of go hand in hand. And so I have that tendency towards it, which now I've got all the tools in my tool belt and I manage it much better. Right. But then I wasn't. And yeah, so I opened a business of my own out of my house. I was really successful. I heard you mention you were a parenting coach. I also did some unofficial parenting coaching that entire time. Pretty much every family that walked through my doors wanted parenting coaching. Um, and and I've always been amazing with kids, so it was just kind of like I fell really easily into that. But um but yeah, I was really struggling internally, and I had always been modeled, do everything yourself, and not sharing your feelings and things like this. And so um I wasn't telling anybody, right? I wasn't telling anybody how hard I was struggling. And then when my daughter was 5, I was pregnant with number 2, my son, and the hormonal imbalance with that pregnancy was just awful, on top of the continuing depression from that wasn't treated from the postpartum with my oldest. And so I was so overwhelmed and depressed. I just wasn't getting anything done. Right. I was still running my day home, but I could not keep up at home. I was feeling like crap about myself because I was just like, I should be able to, I should be able to, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And I call it shooting all over yourself, right? Like it's just, um, we expect so much of ourselves, and society expects a lot of us as well. And I was totally prey to it all, right? And I already had a big task load running a day home and watching 6 7 toddlers at any given time, and pregnant and everything. So anyways, I started searching for how to manage my time, right? And the key thing that I found was minimalism. So that one is sometimes like a really big turnoff for people, but now I've implemented that into like simplicity. So I simplify everything with my clients. And for me, minimalism was literally what it is. Like I had to get rid of so much stuff because you know, Western culture, we just are so consumeristic, right? And we had so much stuff, and we were really blessed to have that, but I was overwhelmed running it all.
Yeah.
So I actually, when I first started out into the coaching space, I was a minimalist coach for moms. And so that was how I actually started out with that. I was doing both for a couple of years. I just in the last 7 8 months closed my day home, and now I'm just doing the coaching. But I progressed from that depression, which I overcame through reducing my overwhelm
Yeah.
first of all, and cut back on the anxiety and everything just by having less to deal with. Um, and then And then I was doing the parenting coaching. Like I said, I was doing the minimalism coaching. And then, I, I started finally, like I was doing the personal development work. So I was doing a lot of the, um, accepting myself for who I was, and releasing the expectations, and all of that. And I started acknowledging where I had some incredible strengths. And with that, with being ADHD, I actually am, I've been called this so many times, the queen of productivity. And so for me, I'm amazing at juggling a million things at once, right? I'm really, really good at that. And I help my clients do that. But I do that by simplifying, which seems so opposite. Um, and so, yeah. And then, actually, as far as the impact stuff goes, I started out on all of this. It was just a way to stay home with my kids. It was a way to stay home, a way to make, a little bit of money so that I was contributing financially, and that was it. But as I dug deeper into my personal development, I also had a spiritual awakening. And so with that, I started receiving downloads of, like, I needed to be doing bigger things. I needed to be helping more people. And I could go into a ton of detail about that. But so that's where all the impact came from, and the alignment. And so helping them get into alignment with their big vision and with what their really big goals and dreams are, and then helping them be super productive so that they can accomplish all of that, and still be at home with their babies. And I have a 5-year-old, I have a 2-year-old. 5-year-old is in part-time school, and the 2-year-old's with me full-time. And I live it every day. I simplified everything. I do so much self-care. I play a lot with my kids. Things like that. And I prioritize all of those things, but I'm still doing huge, huge things in my life. So
All right.
so yeah,
There's so much, there's so much in everything that you've just shared. And I love it because you took us on your whole journey, which is so awesome, because I recognize, and I'm sure others who are listening to this resonate as well. Like when I first had my first child, and then taking them, I didn't have I was living in the Netherlands at the time. I didn't have family around, but that pain of like leaving your child behind after maternity leave, and realizing that that wasn't what I wanted. And like that, then starting to shift things to make your life the way you want it to be. And I love that you share that it's a process, right? Because you share, right, that phasing out in the last 7-8 months while you were slowly adding things to the mix, kind of like that test and tweak, which I find is so important when you're coming to like having your own business, and that you're still in progress, right? Like self-development also resonate with that, because I've been on a self-development journey for like 15 years, and Costa Rica has also had a nice spiritual awakening part, which I did not expect. Right. And weaving that into, like, I swear to God, if I had heard someone like 3-4 months ago say I had a download, I'd be like, you're cuckoo cuckoo. And
right.
now,
And that was me
now
8
I
months
use the
ago.
word myself. Now I use
Yeah.
the word myself. I'm like, oh, I had a download. And I was like, oh, I got to be aware of like when I'm using that, because not everyone,
Yeah.
I mean, even myself a few months ago, right? It's just beautiful to see the progress that we make, and
Mm-hmm.
we're developing ourselves, and how we're creating, right, and really living by that life we want to help others create. And I feel like that's kind of like the core essence. Like you've been on this journey of self-discovery,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not done yet, right? You're continue,
I
right?
don't think it ever is.
No, I don't
Yeah.
think it ever is, but I feel like part of what we have in society, right? Like I remember feeling so jealous of friends in high school who knew what they wanted to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our parents' generation was you studied, you went to work, you worked there until you retired, you were done, right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea that our lives, our careers, our passions, our purpose, everything is kind of like in transition and in progress, a
Mm-hmm.
work in progress, and we may not have that end goal in sight, kind of like throws our whole, protective side of our brain that says, oh, change is bad, into like a panic attack. So I love that you're like, hey, let's just simplify, let's clear all the mess. Because again, that's something that in a different way, like when we were traveling in Mexico, I moved 7 times, and I just realized I was so tired of moving all that crap with me every time. And I'd already moved a lot of stuff out, but just having to pack up and unpack all that stuff every time,
Mm-hmm.
I would have never ever called myself a minimalist. So that's also like, I see like, you became, right? Like you're adding all these layers. And I
Yeah.
love the combination of two things that seem contradictory, right? That
Yeah.
you say like, hey, queen of productivity and minimalism, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
simplification. But I
Because
feel like,
productivity sounds complicated and busy, and it doesn't have to be, but
well, for
yeah,
me, and I think maybe that's the definition of it, right? Like when you explain it, I'm like, for me, productivity just means getting a lot of shit done.
right.
And how you can best do that is if your life is simple, your priorities are simple, and you have tuck, 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 and then you're done for the day.
hmm
Right? Okay. To be
And you're
honest.
using your time effectively, right? You're using your time effectively. So you can do 1,000 things in one day and not have accomplished one thing that you wanted to do. And that's not productive.
Nope.
Right. And so when people look at
That's
it like
busy.
getting a whole bunch of shit done, like you said, it's yes, but you want to be getting the right things done.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the simplification process, right? Is getting that clarity on what you really want to get done, and making sure that you're focusing and doing it, right? So that's how, people are always like, how do you do it all? Because I was running a day home. I ran my day home for about 10 years. And then now I've been doing the online coaching thing for a little over 3, I think. And and I'm like, I've got 3 kids of my own. I had a very my husband was a narcissist and very very needy in terms of like my attention and things like that. And we had 2 dogs, a cat, a hamster, like all the things. It was all the things. And yet I was growing my coaching business. I built my own website. I did all the, and people are just like, how? Well, I'm not doing the stuff that doesn't need to be done. Right. And it's so
Well,
that's
I'm
what I
glad you
mean
did
when
that
I
because
say
I think that is such an important one. I'm not doing the stuff that doesn't need to get done. I feel
hmm
like we make it all like one mess, and then we take on, because you mentioned this earlier, like society expects a lot from us. We
hmm
expect a lot from ourselves. And so like
Yep.
literally the cleaner who came in today, she was like, "Don't your kids have activities after school?" And I'm like, no, because I live in Costa Rica and they run around barefoot all day, then they come home, then they want to play with their friends. And I was like, they don't have any desire. I've offered it. We've tried it. I was
Yeah.
like, I see these parents, my kids are different ages. I was like, I'm going to be spending all afternoon until it's dark out, running my kids from one activity to another because everything is spread out here. I was like, I have no desire to do that. My kids don't. Why would I force it? But I've had
Yeah.
that question. Like, that's one of those things, like, aren't your kids in activities? Right.
Yeah.
So one of those things, I think making the
Like
choice.
that makes you not good enough if they're not. And it's like,
Right? And every
actually,
time
I
it's like,
asked my kids, I offered.
I was like, I think, oh, should I have my kids in activities?
I
And
will
I
tell you
remind
right
myself,
now, I had all 3 of my kids in swim lessons for the last month and a half. There were 2 swim lessons each a week. So there was 6 swim lessons a week, all at different times of day and on different days. It was a nightmare. It was the worst thing I've ever done to myself. I was like, we're not doing this again. No, if they can happen at the same time, so you guys can go in the pool at the same time and I can not have to go back and forth so many times, fine. But otherwise, no, like this is crazy.
yeah,
And sorry, like too bad. There's 3 of you. I'm not gonna run myself ragged. And that was swimming, right? If I also had
yeah,
my oldest was on the basketball team at the same
yeah.
time. So she had basketball practices and basketball tournaments. And it was like, what happened to my life all of a sudden, right? So like
Yeah. And
it's
that's,
not worth it. And I support them absolutely in
yeah.
pursuing what they're interested in, but I'm not going to force it on them if they are not asking for it, right? Like,
But I think this is one of right, how we're approaching our kids in this is actually how we should be treating ourselves. And a lot of things I
yeah,
think we forget that, like, hey, offer the option, but guess what? If you don't like it, don't force it, right? Or in business,
mhm,
of course, there's things that you don't like all the time, but find ways to make it funner or delegate it, right? So
yeah,
those sort of things, right? Like, so I love that because you're really just, I think what you're doing is filtering out all the unnecessary garbage,
yeah,
really tuning into, because I heard you say this and this is what I do as well, right? Like
yeah,
that alignment with your life, and you want to help people create a bigger impact. And that's like one of my core values. And people, when I get on sales calls with people, I'm like, the only thing that really matters to me is not even if you're a mom or a woman,
yeah,
but if you want to
yeah,
create a positive impact in the world, like if
yeah,
you don't have any vision to create a positive impact in the world, then yeah, I
yeah,
mean, there are other coaches for you. It's not that that's bad. There's all sorts of business. Every kind of business is valid.
yeah.
But I love that, like, this is why I was like so excited to get on this interview as well. Because right, like impact and creativity, right? Because I want to tap
Productivity,
into that bit of,
productivity.
did I say creativity? Oh, like
Yeah,
productivity,
it's a
creativity.
productivity. Well, I mean, I'm creative as all hell too, but but
Right,
no,
but I
I'm
know
a
these two things
productivity
are wrong. I
coach.
don't know why I put those two together because productivity and creativity don't normally go together.
That's
But
okay.
yeah. So I mean, if you're looking back, Right. So that, and I'm loving how you kind of harnessed your, right, what people would sometimes, and I have one of my clients who recently is going through the ADHD discovery process, that is labeled by society as a certain kind of person. I mean, my mom was even saying I should have my son tested for it. And I was like, I don't really feel like I need to put a label on
If
him
it's
right
not
now.
affecting his school.
Exactly, exactly. But I think I love how you've harnessed that aspect of
Mhm.
yourself, right? Like really playing open cards also about the depression, about the struggle, about the overwhelm. And if you could give like a few tips to other women who are listening, who are like, oh, I recognize like being HD, ADHD, well, let's not handle them all at once, right? If other people are like ADHD or overwhelmed with stuff,
Mhm.
like what tips would you give them if they're earlier on in their business process?
Okay. So first of all, starting out in business, a lot of the time we think that we need to compare ourselves, like we need to measure ourselves against others who are farther ahead in the game. Okay. So a lot of the time it's like, I should be, again, shooting all over ourselves. I should be doing this.
I
I should be
love
doing
that.
that. I should be doing this, that, and the other thing. And instead, it's like, actually, no, I just started and it's totally fine for me to be in the beginning. And so, first of all, accepting where you are is huge, and reducing your own expectations, because those are ones we're actually putting on ourselves, right? We see these coaches or service providers or whoever online who are like, I'm making 10K months and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it's like, great. And though, those people have a team. They've got, they've got business experience. Maybe they went to school for business. Like, you have no idea their whole history. And so that comparisonitis, right, is a huge problem. So reducing your own expectations, for one, and really getting clear on where you want to go, and then what steps are absolutely necessary to get you there. And also, and this is, again, this is one of those, like, I always have like the duality, and it can be confusing, but like, while I'm saying that, don't compare yourself to those people, it's also, you want to embody where you want to be so that you bring yourself
Yeah.
forward to it more quickly. And so when say you're aiming for $1 million business, great. What is your life going to look like when you have $1 million business? Are you going to work 24/7 and ignore your kids? Because if that's the way you get there, that sucks. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not worth it. If you are going to have $1 million business where it runs mostly without you and you get to step in for the really beautiful, fun parts that you love, perfect. But how are you embodying that right now at the beginning of your business? And this is really, really tough when you're starting out to know how to do that, because you're like, well, I can't just never work. I have to do all these things. Right. And again, what do you really have to do? What actually needs to happen? And lowering those expectations, while I have super high expectations of myself for the things that I do want to get done. My like quality of work type of thing, my expectations are very high.
Just to check. Structural overachiever and recovering perfectionist.
Oh, totally.
Okay. I was like, I recognize these things. I wonder why.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like getting that clarity, getting that simplicity in there, but also, the way that I always teach it, and it seems a little bit like basic maybe for what a lot of the stuff that I talk about is, but I talk about self-care a lot.
Yeah.
I talk about being present with your kids. What is the reason that you decided to have a business from home while your kids were young? It's because you wanted to be home with your kids, right? It's not about the money. It's not about, and that doesn't mean you don't want the money, and that doesn't mean you
No,
don't want to make the
but money
impact,
is
but you want
me.
to be with your kids.
Yeah.
So don't sit there staring at your screen all day long and ignore your kids and miss their childhood.
Yeah.
Right. And if you want to be the best mom, the best boss, the best wife, whatever that you want to be or can be, you need to take care of yourself
Yeah.
first. And so I always say it's self-care, being present with the kids, something for your house, because usually you got to do something around the house, whether that's like prepping food or cleaning or whatever, and then work. And it's a total reversal of what we've all had pounded into our heads of work before play, work before play. No, play before you work. That
Yeah.
is my play before you work, because
I
work will
feel like you
continue
hit
to
the nail
expand
on the
to
head though.
fill the time that you give it. Right.
Yeah, yeah, work will just take over. And then all of a sudden you're at the
Mhm.
end of the day. And I had this because I wanted to do like 15 minutes in the sun a day. right?
Yeah.
Because I live in this beautiful sunny place. And then I realized I hadn't been to the beach in weeks. I hadn't been out to the pool. I was getting annoyed
Yes.
from sitting inside. I was like, wait, why am I here again? Right?
Yeah.
Enjoy the beautiful nature that I'm out, to spend time with friends, to do things that give me energy. And so
Yeah.
exactly that. Sometimes I will fight the guilt even a little bit, but I'll go and take that barefoot beach walk first thing in the morning. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll start work only at 10 o'clock because I take an hour-long beach walk. But I start it with so much more energy, so much more focus, right? Like I've now scheduled a
Yeah.
standard because I just started again. I'm getting my butt kicked and I'm still sore. I just started again at the gym. And I've scheduled that during my work hours, because if I
Mm-hmm.
don't, right, well, one, it will take away, either I have to find a babysitter, or it's going to take away from that time that I want with my family. So I was like,
Yeah.
no, exactly that taking care of yourself, because I know I'm going to come out with more energy, more drive. I'm going to feel more confidence, right? When you take care of
Yeah.
yourself, like, I'm not a person who does a whole lot with my hair, but I did get
No,
my hair
same.
cut recently. Like everyone, for whatever, because I used to teach about this too, and I feel like I can preach self-care till I'm like blue in the face. And
Yeah.
even though, and I think this is why we're also coaches and have coaches ourselves, is
Mm-hmm.
because we have this tunnel vision, and sometimes we can't see areas that we're slacking, or
Yes.
or we make things necessary that aren't really necessary. So I love that you're
Mm-hmm.
like that reverse order. It makes your day so much more fun. And
Well,
it
see, and for me, like you were saying, you go for that beach walk and then you start work by 10. I also start work usually around that time, but I'm up at 5 usually. And I spend, and this is not like a comparison thing, but for me, I spend time meditating, I spend time exercising, I eat a super healthy breakfast that my kids won't touch. I have, like all of this kind of stuff. And literally I will sit there with my hot coffee that I never have to reheat anymore, right? Because I take the time
Ooh.
to just sit there with my hot coffee and I stare at the wall or out the window, depending if it's dark out or
I
whatever. Like,
swear hot coffee should be like a medal
ah,
of honor for women taking care of themselves, because I
and
don't know
I
how
just
long
do.
it
I just
takes,
sit there and
right?
I'm like, and it's just silent and it's amazing, right? And then, my kids are up by 7 and I don't touch work until they're out the door for school. And, the youngest one has been all taken care of and whatever. And I get to very slowly and sweetly and playfully wake up my kids and be happy to see them and be
Yeah.
enjoying every moment that I'm with them, instead of, oh man, before I started doing that self-care in the morning, I was very much a night owl. So I'd be up all night working when
Yeah.
they were sleeping, and then I would want to sleep in and I'd be grumpy when I woke up.
Yeah.
I'd be just miserable and snapping at them, and
Resentful and have
yeah,
all the
and
morning
it's
and
not
be
their
relieved when
fault.
they're finally out the door.
Exactly. And so now it's like, now I'm like, when they're leaving, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna miss you, and I'm squeezing, like I'm excited, and I like climb in their beds and I'm like, good morning, wake up, right? And that was not me before, and it's an amazing feeling. I
Yeah.
love it, right? And I do also spend other time with them throughout the day, but that morning time is so precious, and so that's why I say self, then being present with the kids, and then once the other older two are
Yeah.
out the door for school, I spend a little bit of time like settling in my 2-year
Yeah.
old. And then I usually put on like a podcast or an audiobook or whatever. And I clean for 30 minutes. I just spend 30 minutes. I clean up from breakfast. I, throw in a load of laundry, whatever, all of that stuff. And then I've done something for my home. So I'm not like at the end of the day, like, oh my goodness, my house is a disaster and I didn't even
Yeah.
touch it, look at it, whatever. And then I get to like sit down and I've cleared all of the mental clutter,
Yeah.
all of the like, I need to do this and I need to do this and I need to do this. All of that is gone. And I'm just like, okay, what am I working on today? Right. And
Yeah.
sit down and I get so much done so quickly. And it's really, everything has more impact and is more forceful because it's only what matters.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm doing that. And then with the ADHD, like you were asking, if someone's starting out in business and they're overwhelmed, and especially if they have ADHD, um, one of my favorite tools is the Pomodoro method. So that
Yeah.
is 25 minutes of work, 5-minute break. And then you repeat that a few times. And then eventually you'll take like a 15-minute break
Yeah.
and so on. It's really, really effective with ADHD. But what I suggest, if you are struggling to focus, if you have like done all these things and you're like sitting down and you cannot get your brain to stop and you're just like, run, go
Yeah.
outside, jump around, run, get crazy with your kids, whatever it is, like use up that physical energy, because that is a lot of the time, if we haven't given ourselves that. And that's why I include exercise in my morning routine as well, because
Yeah.
I need that like out of my body so that I can sit and not even right now, I'm moving a lot, right? I move a lot. I have very much like the hyperactive ADHD, so I move all the time. Um, but when I let that out of my body and I prioritize that for myself and I make sure that I've eaten, a lot of the time women with ADHD, we tend to forget to eat. So
Not even
I've
ADHD.
eaten.
If you're a mom of like, I feel like if you're a
Well,
mom,
yeah, and moms, of course, right? Like
right,
as a
the hot
mom, you're
coffee is
busy, you
not just
eat the
about
crusts
eating,
and you eat the like the
right?
peels and yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, prioritizing yourself, making sure you've had water, take a bathroom break, like all these basic needs that we totally ignore because we're like, no, I only have this little window of time and I need to get all these things done. But you're not effective. You're not being productive when you work like that. So
No.
stop, take those deep breaths, go for a little walk, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
play with your kids for a few minutes, go to the bathroom, you know,
Yeah.
all the things, and then sit back down and I guarantee you will be like, okay, and you'll be just rocketing through it, right? And
Especially
it's
like if you're sitting here twitching in your seat because you need to pee and you're like, no, I got to get work done. You realize that there's something like fundamentally wrong with that.
there is, and that's because like our physical needs, needing to go pee is a fundamental need, a human
Yeah.
need. It has
And
nothing
the
to do with being a
moving.
woman. It has nothing to do with being
No.
ADHD. Why do we not prioritize it first for ourselves when everyone else does, right? Why do we hold it? Go, go to the bathroom. Like, so,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Even
that's,
that, right? Like that, I love that. The tip to one, work in these very like these blocks of times. I love Pomodoro methods. So like that's one that really
Mhm.
resonates with me. And I'm not even ADHD, but I notice like when you have, and I would say even if you have like a very active mind, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't have to be ADHD. Like you're like I never used to think of
You're
myself
very
as creative.
creative, right? So,
I never
yeah.
used to think of myself that way. And now I realize because I used to label creativity as art, right? That was the only people that were
Mm.
creative. And now I realize I am really freaking creative. But that's why my
Yeah.
head like ping pongs all over the place. And so
Yep.
like running or the taking a dance break or right that barefoot
Yep.
walk on the beach even, or I've learned surfing is like an active meditation for me. I've only done it twice. I'm
Ooh.
not like a surfing expert, but I like found my brain was like quiet and I was like, ooh. It's one of those like
That's
rare
awesome.
moments because if it's not me being quiet, like I don't know how your little monsters are at home, little monsters, little angels, whatever your kids
They're
are.
monsters.
Um, well, I have this joke like one is a pet, two is a zoo, three is a jungle, and so I say I always
Mm.
live in a jungle. Like it's
Yeah.
never quiet. It's never quiet, and I've developed this
No.
sensitivity to sound since having kids, and so I realized
Mm-hmm.
that being able to go inward and have that like inner peace, kind of like a la Kung Fu
Yep.
Panda, is really freaking amazing. So exactly that, even though it's counterintuitive to get up and maybe it feels like procrastinating or not doing more work, but getting up and going for that run or taking a dance or eating something like feeding your face or going to the bathroom, right? Like that is going to help you be more productive. So
Yeah.
awesome stuff. I feel like we could babble on for hours.
Yeah.
That's a little bit our ping pong nature as well.
Yep.
So I recognize that now. I'm like, there's a small voice thing. I'm like, are you HD? And I was like, does it matter? Like again,
No, it
those
doesn't. It
labels,
doesn't. And
right?
some
But
people
it is,
get their ADHD diagnosis and they're devastated. And I'm like, but you already had it. Like it's just now you get to work with it and you get to learn how to manage it and you
yeah.
get to, so even if you are, whatever, like
It
if
gives
you're
you,
managing it and you're functioning, then you're fine.
I
Like,
feel like sometimes though a diagnosis can give empowerment and control. Like when you like
yeah.
people understand, oh, I had postpartum depression. Oh, I can do something about it, right? Oh, I was
Yes.
overwhelmed or burnt out. Oh, okay, now I can do something about it because they can figure out like, this is how I can start changing things for myself. Or like ADHD can also
Yeah.
be one of those things like, hey, what are tips, tools, strategies that I can use to like empower myself and to be more in control? Whereas sometimes
Turn
these
it into a
you feel
superpower instead of a struggle.
right, exactly that, and then you feel, well, think about the depression, right, or the overwhelm, and like feeling like completely like you have no idea what's going on, what step to take next.
Yep.
So I can totally imagine that's places like where you and I come in for that sort of thing, and that's where our coaches come in for us, of course, right?
Yep.
So queen of productivity, it has been awesome. Do you have one? Because you've given so many things, right? Like not comparing yourself, but like the acceptance, managing own expectations, like clarity and exactly like where you want to go and those steps to take
Mhm.
it, envisioning. right? Like that future self. Like if you want to be a millionaire, go ahead, be freaking ambitious and start embodying it now. I love that.
Yeah.
Like embodying, like, hey, because what I take that to mean is start acting like that version would. Like,
Yeah.
so
And I don't mean
manage
start
your time
spending
better,
like
right?
one, but
No.
start,
Yeah, yeah.
start taking that time for yourself. Start going and playing with your kids. The things that you want to do someday, do them now. Because if
Yeah,
you're
not
not
waiting
doing
to
them now, you're
retirement,
never going to do them.
right?
Exactly.
This is the thing
And
that
your
not
kids are grown and gone and they don't care anymore. And like, no, do it now. Right.
exactly that.
So
I think that's the point I'd like to end on, actually, to wrap it all up, is like, why wait? Right?
yeah.
Like step into like your dream, your vision, the life you want to create for yourself, and start make, I mean, like, it maybe not the end vision is happening now, but start making it happen now.
Yes. And one of the things that I always say, and this is like kind of where more I go into like the impact and the ripples and all of that, but you don't want to wait till your kids are older, not just because you want to spend time with them now, but you actually want to show them what following their dreams looks like.
Absolutely.
Because if they don't have examples of that, like many of us, we grew up with this work before play and work for the man until you retire, like you said,
Yep.
and go to school and get a good job and all of this. Well, no, let's start showing our kids that they can follow their dreams and then they
Absolutely.
can start changing the world too. And so I really think that like if everybody, not everybody, but if a lot more people went with entrepreneurship and following their passion and following their dreams, I mean, we're given those passions and those dreams for a reason. And it's because we're meant to have an impact on the world. So follow them and teach your kids to follow them, right? By
Great.
example. And of course, because how do we teach them? We don't teach them by saying it. We have to show them, right? So if they see you working 24/7, they're going to think that you have to work 24/7 to pay the bills,
Yeah.
like,
And
so yeah.
that's the beauty of it. My 7-year-old is already saying, like, Mom, I want to have a lot of money, but I don't really want to work hard to do it. And
Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah.
like, words that only would think like, oh, you're lazy. But I'm like, no, he's seeing that his parents can
There's more to life than working.
that we take off time to go on their field trips, that we spend time
Yeah.
with them after they get out of school, that our work is not consuming us 24/7, and that there's enough money coming in to live this lifestyle. So it's like
Yeah.
exactly that, right? Live the example to create a future generation that knows things can be different.
Exactly. So, and then you're creating that impact on two levels, right? You're doing your own and you're also helping them to do their own. So it's,
Ripple, ripple,
yeah,
ripple, 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 ripple.
ripple, ripple, ripple. Exactly. Exactly.
All right. I'm going to post links to how you can find Brianna, how you can follow her, any specials that she's got going on. They'll all be shared in the links to this interview. Brianna, thank you so, so much for coming on and sharing your journey and your inspiration and all your golden tidbits with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It
All
was
right.
lots of fun.
Bye.
All right. Bye.